Hi, this is The Greatest Story Ever Played. I'm Dan, and I'm here to talk about the Quarry with two friends. I've got Jacob from Left Behind Game Club, and then CtrlAltNoob. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves real quick. So, Jacob, how about you introduce yourself first?
Oh, hi. Hello. My name is Jacob McCourt. I've been on several episodes of The Greatest Story Ever Played. Dan and I have a tradition of playing the Dark Pictures games together, which, Dan, it sounds like we have another date before the end of the year. Wink, wink.
Right.
And I make two podcasts, one called Left Behind Game Club. It's a video game book club podcast. It's very similar to what Dan does, except less of a focus on story-driven games. And then I host another podcast called Cutscenes. It's a video game movie podcast that, confirmed today, is coming back in 2023. So you can find me on all major social media platforms at Jacob McCourt, JACOBMCCOURT. Let's talk about the Quarry. Noob, over to you.
Hi, I am CtrlAltNoob, but everybody just calls me Noob. I am a Twitch streamer, so I stream like 3 to 5 times a week. I play a lot of story games. I particularly like games like this where it's the interactive movie style, like Quantic Dream, Supermassive game. That's their name, isn't it? I think it is.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
Supermassive games, there it is. And like exploration games too, indie games, some newer games, mostly older games, but a little bit of variety. And I also have a YouTube channel and a blog as well, but mainly Twitch streamer.
Awesome. Yeah. And definitely check out both of their things. I've seen two Noob. You've done a lot of the Dark Pictures games as well in the past, right? On stream.
I did. Until Dawn was before my content creation times, but I did the Dark Pictures anthology with a friend. We played it in like shared story mode, so they were playing and I was playing at the same time, but we were sometimes seeing different scenes. We both streamed it. It was an excellent time. And then we did the Quarry very recently.
That's great. That's awesome. Yeah. Thanks both of you for coming on. I'm excited to talk Quarry with you. Also, the links for both of them will be inside the show notes. Please go check out Noob Streams. Check out Jacob's podcast. Lots of good content from both of these people. But we know you're here to talk about the Quarry, so we'll hop into that. Jacob, would you want to grab that description for us?
Oh, I would love to. As the sun sets on the last day of summer camp, the counselors of Hackett's Quarry throw a party to celebrate. Things quickly take a turn for the worse. Hunted by blood-drenched locals and something far more sinister, the teens' party plans unravel into an unpredictable night of horror. Play as each of the 9 counselors in a thrilling cinematic tale where every decision shapes your story.
Wow.
That was perfect.
Thank you.
So that's a little bit about the game. We're going to talk about kind of background on the game, developed by Supermassive, like we mentioned off top. Known mostly for Until Dawn, also the Dark Pictures anthology that Jacob and I have been podcasting on as they come out. So that's been pretty fun. Those games are very much the same type of game. If you like the Quarry, you probably like those, or vice versa. They're very, very similar in type of style of game. Before we dive into spoilers, I did want to give a spot for sort of a non-spoiler section where we could maybe share some thoughts on this game. If for whatever reason, maybe you're on the fence, should I play the Quarry or not? I wanted to give us each an opportunity to share a little bit about what we thought about the game without, I don't know, hitting main plot points or anything like that. So, Noob, do you have any thoughts kind of in this non-spoiler section you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, so I think that the Quarry is like definitely a recommendation from me if you like these kinds of games. But I would say like go in it with expectations that like don't expect it to be a masterpiece. Don't expect it even necessarily to be as good as Until Dawn. Just kind of go in with a blank slate and let it kind of do its thing. But also expect like a little bit of jank gameplay wise, I found. Because I had some little bits of trouble that I'll get into later. But it was still overall worth playing because I really liked the story. The story was very fun, and I think just go into it looking for fun, basically. Don't look for like a master novel that is gonna blow your mind. It's just popcorn fun, I think.
No, that's good. I think that's helpful to set your expectations. Totally.
I think it's slow to start, and I would say don't be off put by that. And also, some people might not think that it's slow to start, but I actually recently just did a rewatch for this podcast, and as I was watching, I was like, oh my god, I can't remember it being this slow. But actually, I look back at my streams, and it took me 3 streams, so like it's not a long game. But the first stream, we didn't get to the horror yet, so like a third of it is kind of build up and set up. And if you can go along with it, you're getting to know the characters and stuff, then you're in for a treat for the next 2/3, I think.
Yeah, I thought that was different. This game compared to the other Supermassive games is your build up. You spend a lot of time just kind of doing stuff. It almost felt like a Life is Strange game or something like that, where it was like kind of chill and you're getting to know people and stuff. And I did not expect that coming in. You know, normally it's like with the Dark Pictures, it's like 30 minutes in, something crazy's happening. But this one, yeah, definitely took its time to get there. What about you, Jacob?
So I liked this game. I think it's, you and I probably, I know because I can see the notes here, but I think you and I have the same opinion, Dan, that this is the best Supermassive game since Until Dawn. We played the Dark Pictures games. I think a lot of them are really hit and miss. But really this is like, think of it in a similar scope to Until Dawn, and it's maybe 1.5 times the game size of the Dark Pictures game, except this really, in my opinion, takes a graphical leap forward. The mouths on the characters are still a little bit weird in my opinion, but apart from that, it's pretty photorealistic and the game looks really great. I have a lot of business questions that I won't get into of like how this game goes to 2K and Bandai Namco doesn't get this game, because this game is the best thing they've done in the last 7 years. I'd rather get more games like this than Dark Pictures games, to be honest with you. And I disagree with you on one point, Dan, and I'm stealing your thunder here. But some of the characters I found were a little one-dimensional, and I felt like they were just cannon fodder there. You know, there's 9 counselors, right? So some of them are going to be more developed than others. But I felt like some of them were stereotypes. Some of them moved beyond the stereotypes, but not all of them, and I get it. There's 9 characters. There's only so much time to develop them. But I did appreciate a few of the performances that I'm sure we'll get into as we talk about the characters.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think that some of them definitely were more, as you described, cannon fodder for sure. I was just surprised because when we played the Dark Pictures games, they've been so like, this person's the nerd and they will only do nerd things, or they're the dumb jock and they are only that. And when there were a few characters in this who like were something the opposite of what I expected, I was like, oh, like these are more than the stereotype, which I was surprised by, just because Supermassive hasn't really shown us that in the Dark Pictures specifically. Until Dawn, I would say the characters had a little more going on sometimes, but the Dark Pictures have been very like, this is who they are.
Yeah, I think Ryan, for example, was a good example of a character that like started one way, and then you started to peel back layers of the onion to realize that like, oh, he's not a one-dimensional character. But then you had characters like Jacob, which again, I'm embarrassed that this Jacob was such an arrogant asshole, really. And he was very one-dimensional. But I'm sure we're going to talk about the characters, so I will save the spoilery stuff for a little bit later.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, for me, really the only thing I would say is echo Jacob's thought there of, I think this is the best Supermassive game since Until Dawn, for sure. I think after Jacob and I playing the Dark Pictures ones, like the first one I had some hopes, it wasn't great. The second one, kind of more disappointed again. I think the third one hopped it up a whole lot and was way better. But I think I went into the Quarry being like, I don't know, the Dark Pictures have been pretty like fine. I like this kind of game, so like I'll like it because of that, but I wasn't like thrilled in the way that I thought I might be. But after playing this, I think that Supermassive just needs a little more time, maybe. Like the Dark Pictures games being like 5 hours, but this was more like 8 or 10. Mm-hmm. Maybe that extra runway is just what they need and makes their games better. I don't know what it is, but the Quarry is like a large step above the Dark Pictures games for sure.
I mean, it could be a budgetary thing too of like, you know, these games have 1.5 times the budget. I mean, there's tons of stars in this game, which I think this is like Until Dawn level of like star power. I even think maybe a little bit more. given some of like the Ted Raimis and the David Arquettes that they got. But yeah, like you said, I'd rather get one of these games every 2 years instead of a Dark Pictures every year. But who knows what will happen to Dark Pictures after this year? What is it called? The Devil in Me is this year's edition.
Yeah.
It sounds like this might be the last one they do in season 1, even though initially they'd promised something crazy like 7 or 9 of these games.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see what, like... So they made this, the Dark Pictures ends, or season 1 ends, and presumably that means there's a season 2 with, I don't know, maybe 4 games if they follow what they did before. But, like, does that mean they're taking a break to put out another Quarry or Until Dawn type game in the middle of that? Like, Supermassive has me interested and confused, for sure.
Yeah. And they did some other games as well, didn't they? They did the VR one, and they did the Hidden Agenda one, which was on phones. So I wonder if they're trying to like innovate new things as well between the seasons potentially, but I have no idea because I don't think they've been all that successful. Like, I haven't really heard a lot of chat about those 2 games specifically.
Hidden Agenda is a gem. It's like a hidden gem.
Hidden Agenda is one that I really want to play. I've had on a wish list, I think, since the first time you came on, Jacob, to talk about Dark Pictures, and you brought it up, and we're like, this was really cool, and now I've just had it in my head of, like, I need to get friends over, I need to play it, have fun, like, do the Jackbox style thing there.
I'm sorry, I feel like every time I come on, I tell you to play Hidden Agenda, because it's, like, 4 or 5 hours, and it's cheap, and it's, like you said, Noob, through the phones, like Sony's PlayLink technology, where, like, you have cards on your phone and you control the narrative through your phone like a Jackbox game. So yeah, you should, like, Halloween night, Dan, invite some folks over to your house, play Hidden Agenda. I played it in one night. It was a long night, but we played it in one night, so it's doable.
Ooh, that's good. Okay, now I feel like I really have to do it for sure. I want to do it. Like, it's been on a wish list forever and I keep almost buying it. I need to do it. But, yeah, no, this is great. So, I think non-spoiler thoughts, I think this gives us a little insight, though, into what we thought about this game. So, from here, we'll hop into some spoilers. So, if you haven't played this game, I would go play it and come back, because we're going to basically spoil everything and talk about all our experiences of how this went. To do that, before we get into the recap itself, I think it'd be important to talk about our characters in this game, because there are a lot. We mentioned 9 counselors off top. So I'm going to go kind of a quick run through of the who's who in this game. And also the actors that play them, because like Jacob said, there's some familiar faces in this game for sure of, oh, I know them. So first up, we've got Abby. She's played by Ariel Winter. The game describes her as shy, artistic, and indecisive. You might know her from Modern Family. We've got Dylan, Miles Robbins. He's sarcastic, laid back, and sociable. We've got Emma, who's played by Halston Stage. She's confident, performative, and self-assured. You've got Jacob, played by Zach Tinker, athletic, arrogant, and funny. You've got Caitlin, Brenda Song. She's quick-witted, headstrong, cunning. I know her from New Girl. She was Winston's girlfriend for a little bit. You've got Nick, played by Evan Ivagora. He's polite, awkward, and impressionable. You've got Ryan, Justice Smith, played by Justice Smith, who is inquisitive, stoic, charming, and he was in Detective Pikachu, so if you've seen that, you know him. You've got Laura, played by Siobhan Williams. She's studious, independent, and determined. You've got Max, played by Skylar Gazondo. He's Mr. Witty, sarcastic, helpless. You know him probably from Vacation or Booksmart. I feel like he's very much a that guy. You've probably seen him. Then we've got Chris Hackett, played by David Arquette. He runs the camp that these counselors work at. You probably know him from Scream. Then we've got Sheriff Travis, played by Ted Raimi. He's cold, detached. You probably know him from Evil Dead or the Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi Spider-Mans. Then we've got Bobby, played by Ethan Suplee. He's a hunter. You might know him from Remember the Titans or Butterfly Effect. He's also kind of a that guy. And then lastly, we've got Jedediah, played by Lance Hendrickson. He's a hunter. You might know him from Aliens. He also does video games, so he was Hank in Detroit Become... Or no, not Hank. Carl, yes, from Detroit Become Human. So, yeah, those are sort of our who's who. I was curious for each of you. We have a lot of characters in this, but who are your favorite characters in this game?
I can go first and say that I think Caitlyn was my favorite. I just really like strong female leads. And, you know, I love Brenda Song from Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. I'm really like dating myself and aging myself here. But even the small bit role she had in like the Facebook movie with Jesse Eisenberg from many years ago.
Oh, yeah.
I always appreciate she eats up the screen when she's around. So I think she was definitely my favorite character. Shobin Williams grew on me as the game went on. When I first started, I'm like, oh no, she's just like the annoying girlfriend, whatever. But as the game went, she really grew on me. I was surprised that I really disliked Justice Smith. And it wasn't the acting. I think it was the writing of him just being like the creepy, quiet weirdo who like just withdraws himself from conversations that like he doesn't want to be interested in. I think that maybe changed as we went through the game. But at least for the first half, I just felt like they didn't give him a lot to do with the writing that he was given. So, you know, despite liking almost everything else that he's done, I didn't love him, but that was a writing thing. Some of the characters were super one-dimensional, though, and I disliked a lot of them. Like Jacob, dislike. Dylan, dislike. Nick, dislike. Basically all the male characters I just didn't love. Like all the male counselors I didn't love.
We had such a different experience with the characters. Oh my goodness.
Ooh.
Tell me, you love Dylan. Why?
Dylan, well, I hated Dylan at first. So when we first met Dylan, like I immediately called him out for being an arsehole. I was like, that was just such a dick thing you just said. And he was like, I don't remember how he took it, but then as the game went on, like you have a chapter of Ryan and Dylan together. And that particular chapter, I just bonded with Dylan so much. And he ended up being my favourite because, like, I found him so funny. And after he'd opened up, I got to understand his personality a bit more. And, like, his reactions to things was just so real. And I was like, I love you, Dylan. I also liked Ryan as well because I just kind of liked that he would just go and do his own thing and stuff. Like, I'm kind of a quiet person. Well, in my content, I'm not quiet, but in real life, around a lot of people, I would go and be the isolated one as well. So I kind of like vibed with him a little bit. And I was like the opposite of Jacob as well because I just disliked Caitlyn. She
Really?
Yeah, I had so many moments with her where like I feel like the game really tried hard to make her into this like cool girl that everyone was supposed to like, and she's like sassy and feisty, and I don't really like that. And then later on, like without jumping into spoilers or anything, there was multiple times where she could have done things and she didn't, and I was like, Howie, live up to your reputation, girl, like do it. And she didn't, and I was like, oh Caitlyn. But I think also I really liked all of the adult characters, like, as weird as that sounds. They were all, like, well performed, and not necessarily liking the characters. Like, I've wrote down I wanted to give a shout out to the two older ladies in the game, and, like, especially the mother who we'll get to, well, the mother of the Hacketts, who we'll get to meet a lot later on. Yeah, she had, like, a very small role. But I was, like, proper taken in, like, by her. Like, I thought she had a really good performance. And I was like, I mean, she was horrible. I hated her. But I wanted to see more of her as well. And same with the other old lady. She was, like, creepy and cool. And I really wanted to give a shout out to them. Because although the game is mainly about the teens, I thought the adults, like, stole the show.
Fair. Yeah, especially with the prominence of the actors, like, I agree. I thought Ted Raimi was like probably the person who gave the best performance.
He was so good
because it was nuanced and it was like, you know, the onion kind of unfurled as the game went on, and you found out more about his motivations and what was happening in his life, and like the mystery surrounding, like the mystery kind of revolved around him to a certain degree. So yeah, between him and I just wish David Arquette was in it more. I felt like maybe they just got him for a certain like amount of time, and they used him as much as they could, and then they almost had a story reason for why they didn't use him as much as Ted Raimi, for example.
That must be it. I agree. I feel like of all the characters, he's who I wish I saw more. Just because, it's David Arquette. Like, I love Scream, so for him to be less in this, I was like, oh, that's a bummer. Because when you meet him really early on, so I was like, oh, cool, he's going to be a big part of this. And then he really wasn't.
Yeah, shockingly little, actually, because he was... I remember his face from the trailers. Like, I don't actually know the actor, but I thought he would be in it a lot because he almost felt like the face of it from what I'd seen before. But he really does just vanish.
Yeah. Also, I realized I didn't put them down, but Eliza Vorez is voiced by Grace Zabrinski. She's the fortune teller who you kind of see in between. So kind of if you were playing the Until Dawn games or the Dark Pictures, she kind of acts as your psychiatrist or whatever that you meet. But instead, she's a fortune teller.
She's has prominent roles in Twin Peaks. So
okay,
again, pedigree.
Yeah, she was great. I feel bad that I didn't write her down. She had a significant part in this, for sure. She actually probably in my recap that I wrote down doesn't come up just because you meet with her kind of after certain chapters and she'll be like, do you want to look more? Do you have a tarot card? All that stuff.
She's your curator character if you play the Dark Pictures games.
Yep, exactly. She does that. So she exists in the game, but sort of in a different way, just like the curator does. No, that's good. For me, my favorites were Laura. I really liked her. By the end of the game, she was my favorite of the counselors. As both of you had mentioned, I really like Sheriff Travis as well. I thought he did a great job. And yeah, I don't know. Overall, I think for me on the characters, I didn't have any that I totally hated, actually, which I was a little surprised by. In all the other Supermassive games, I've had people that are like, you suck and I don't like you at all. And some of these ones, it was like, okay, I don't like you, but you've shown this somewhat redeeming moment that you're a little better than I would have guessed. Like Jacob, I think, is one that we've hated on a little bit, and deservedly so, for sure. He's like a douche bro, I would say, by and large. But even having some moments where you see him let his guard down, and I was like, oh, okay, you're not like for being a guy who seems like he would be loud douche bro, and then he's crying on the dock because he gets rejected. I was like, okay,
you're just horribly insecure. Got it.
That's fair. That's another way to take that.
I felt some sympathy for him.
Yeah, I took it sensitively, but I feel like that's fair though. But I don't know. I was surprised. Or for Emma, at the beginning, she seems I don't know, pretty shallow and just I'm just, I'm above this and I'm going to go and do my vlog and all this stuff. But then you have these moments for her where you're like, oh, okay, maybe there's a little more than we see kind of thing, which I don't know. I was surprised by or glad by because I certainly didn't expect it based on Dark Pictures especially. So we can go. I asked people online a little bit about what they thought. So first person I got answers from was Do You Want to Continue on Twitter, who said that Dylan, Sheriff Travis, and Caitlin were their favorites, none of whom they particularly liked at the beginning, but then grew to be their favorite characters. And then Jack on Twitter said, I second this post, every word of it. So they also had the same favorite characters that in the beginning, not a fan. By the end, they were my favorites.
I agree with that as well, except for Caitlin.
Caitlin's great. Come on.
And then we've got Eli on Twitter said, I know no one else really liked him, but I liked Jacob a lot. So Jacob's for someone. Even if no one here particularly loved him. And then Meagle is on Team Jacob, saying that they loved Caitlin. So I think
Team
that's
Jacob the podcaster, not Jacob the character in the Quarry.
Right. Good clarification.
Thank you.
But I think something that is fun about these games with a variety of characters like this is that we can each have ones that we end up liking more. And that makes me glad that they put in a variety of characters in that for, there's ones that don't work for me and I'm like, I don't really care if they die. If someone's got to die, I would let them go. But then for other people, they're like, no, that's my person. I would let someone else die instead if I had to. So no, that's great. So yeah, I think we've done sort of our pre-work. I think we can hop into the game itself, talking to the recap, what happened in this game, what we thought about it, what was our experience. I imagine for the three of us, we probably have pretty varied experiences as to how this went and who died and how it went and what choices we made. So the way I've got my notes set up that I don't know people will hear is my how my playthrough went, but Noob and Jacob will certainly chime in and take us down the routes they went too, and people who maybe died sooner or later than characters I had. So the game begins with Laura and Max driving up to Hackett Quarry, though, and it's at the start of summer. They're new camp counselors, and they're trying to go up a day early. Their thought is, we'll just go up a day early, we'll have a night that's just us, we'll have fun, and then the next day the campers will get there, it will be fine. That's sort of their game plan. But on the way, they're driving, and something kind of runs across the road, and it makes them swerve off, and they kind of off-road into the forest and get stuck. When they get stuck, they get out, they're trying to get the car out of the woods and the mud and all that, and it's creepy, as you would expect. There's some weird stuff going on. A little bit into this, Officer Travis shows up, and he kind of is shitty to them, and is like, what are you doing? Why did you crash? Hackett's Quarry doesn't open until tomorrow. You're a day early, like all of that stuff. So he's pretty hard on them. You guys, once you're out of here, you need to go check into a hotel. Don't go there. So this is sort of your like first instance here.
Before we meet Travis as well, they kind of split up a little bit because Laura's concerned that potentially they hit something, so she wants to go to the road to check whether anyone's dead on the road, basically. And as she's walking around on her own, like, she starts hearing whispers in the woods saying Silas, and as a player, we get to keep seeing like these hauntings of what looks like an old lady. And it's very spooky, and it's something that will recur a little bit throughout the game.
For me, I played this section like a few months ago when the game first came out, because my partner actually bought it because she wanted to play it so badly. She played it with her brother, and I kind of played the intro myself. And I'm not gonna lie, I bounced off a little bit because I didn't realize that the game was gonna jump to a set of different characters, and was just like. This was almost like the Assassin's Creed 3 moment where, spoilers for Assassin's Creed 3, where you play as like the father of the character that you're going to play. I'm like, who are these characters? What are we doing? So I won't lie. I did this a while ago and I bounced off pretty quick. But yeah, this just left me with a lot more questions than answers, which, I mean, hey, it's a Dark Pictures game. We have an intro that gives us more questions than answers. So par for the course so far.
That's true.
I actually kind of think it's interesting because, like, generally in most of these games, like, without wanting to spoil too much, you always start your intro tutorial section kind of as other characters, and usually they don't survive. So for me, I was more like, oh, how are these two gonna die? Like, I was more ready for them to die and be like, okay, let's get into the real game.
That's a good point. They do. This is spoiling one, but like with Man of Medan, right? You're the soldiers, and then you get done.
Yeah, things happen.
That's funny. That's a good point.
Man of Medan, more like men of Medan. Am I right? Sorry, I'm stupid.
I liked it. That was a good pun.
No, that's good. That's a good point. I didn't think that playing this, and so when it resolves, I was like, oh, that was intense. So I didn't catch the normalcy of it. So from here. After your weird interaction with Sheriff Travis, Laura and Max are like, all right, fuck cops. I'm going to still go. What does that guy know? He's just a country guy. And so they head to the camp anyway. And they get there. Everything's locked up. But they see like a light in the basement. And they're like, okay, well, let's just break into the basement. We'll stay there till morning. And we'll be like, oh, we didn't know we couldn't come up early. We'll just say that. And so they do that while they're in the basement. something comes out and attacks Max. Laura tries to leave. As she's like getting ready to leave, Sheriff Travis shows up and sticks a syringe in her neck. She's knocked out. Then we get a fast forward to the end of summer. You've got our camp's counselors saying goodbye to all the campers, and they get ready to do kind of the final cleanup before they all head out as well. And kind of things you learn early on in this. Jacob is sad that Emma broke up with him. They'd been dating as camp counselors. He wanted to do a long distance relationship after this camp was over. Emma wanted it to just be summer fun kind of thing. So Jacob thinks he can kind of convince her that it would be worth it. So he sabotages the car. I guess there's two ways you can do this. One way that like permanently breaks the car, and another version where you can just steal a piece of I don't know, the engine or something.
Yeah, and the only reason I brought it up is because like if you want to do the 100% run, if you need to do the stealing of the rotor arm, which allows you to dive into the lake at one point in the middle, about the middle point of the game, where you see a bloated body under the water. So that's the significance there.
Yep. Yeah. That's and I think gives you an optional death for Jacob there too, which
yes, absolutely, you're right.
Which is wild. I guess now I'm curious. I stole the rotor arm. Did you guys do that, or did you do something else?
I
stole the rotor arm.
Yeah, I thought like at least we can put it back if we need to. Except he takes it into the lake with him. Like, why did he undressed, but he still took it into the lake with him? Why did he do that? Stupid Jacob.
Yeah, he's dumb. But he sabotages the van. His thought is, if I have one more night with her, she'll totally get it and want to go long distance. That's sort of him. You also meet Abby and Emma. They're talking about Nick and Jacob. Nick is another counselor. Abby's had a crush on him all summer, but she's never made a move towards him. He's never made a move towards her. And then Emma was dating Jacob through the summer, but they've broke it off. And Emma basically says, you should go for it with Nick. It's the last night. You know, like, you should try to do that. The group all gets their phones back. You find out that Mr. Hackett basically was like, no phones, like you're on camp. You should be away from, I don't know, technology or whatever, and be with nature. And also, the phones probably don't work out here anyway. So when they all get their phones back, the batteries are mostly dead. And, I don't know, being a bunch of young people who haven't had their phone for a few months are not happy about that, but eager to get their phones back. Let's see, what else happens here? Kind of where things start rolling is Chris Hackett gives the keys to Jacob to start the van so that the counselors can leave. And Jacob goes to it. The van, of course, won't start because it doesn't have the piece that Jacob stole. And Chris kind of freaks out and is like, oh my God, you guys, like, everyone stay inside. I'll come back tomorrow morning. But please just stay inside tonight. You know, I'll be back. Ryan, you're in charge. Ryan has been a counselor there like multiple times and has a personal relationship with Chris. So he kind of puts Ryan in charge and is like, you handle this. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll all get to go. Meanwhile, of course, all these teenagers are like, cool. Well, let's party. It's the last night. Who cares?
Yep.
So they have a bonfire. Everyone kind of gets assignments. Nick and Abby go off to get firewood. Jacob and Emma are going to get party supplies. Dylan charges everyone's phones. It sort of sets the stage. And then to sort of end this chapter, you see the hunters, Jedediah and Bobby, walking up. They put a sign in the ground and like have blood on themselves, and they have their guns, and you're like, holy shit, they're gonna hunt the counselors.
Yep.
Which to me, I don't know if this is how you felt, but when this started, my reaction was, oh my God, is it like some sort of agreement that Hackett made with like the country surrounding them that like we're allowed to be here for 3 months, but basically you can kill anyone that's on your land that's not during the summer camp. Like that was sort of what I imagined. So I was like, oh my God, are they going to get hunted? So that was my first thought.
Yeah, I truly had no idea. And one thing I want to mention that we haven't talked about yet is that this game, compared to some of the other games in the Dark Picture series, has a lot of good licensed music. when the game, in the first chapter, for example, you get like an Ariana Grande song, Moonlight, which is just like absolutely perfect. I mean, causes problems for people that stream the game in streamer mode because DMCA bait this game is. But like, it's an Ariana Grande song in this game, which is super cool. And even in this moment, I can't remember what the game was or what the song was, but I know that it was probably like whenever these guys came in, it was very like, you know, country-ish, like bluegrassy songs when the hunters came around.
So I was playing on streamer mode because I was streaming it. Yeah. So one of the complaints that I had about the game was, oh my god, the music. it did quite a few of these moments that I kept thinking were very Life is Strange-esque, where it would have these like montages, these moments, and it would have this music going over it. Like, I was like, oh, I don't know if I like that for this game. But then later on as well, sometimes something would happen and then the music would start. And the music just felt so inappropriate to what was happening on the screen. And I was like...
Was it because it wasn't licensed music, right? Like, it was just like...
Yeah, I have
mode,
no
it was
idea.
Like generic elevator music.
No, it wasn't generic elevator music. It was like just... I don't even know what type of music it would be. But it was always like... some jolly music would happen when something really dramatic had happened. And I was like, why is this happening? I've never actually seen it not in streamer mode because obviously the playthrough that I watched was also in streamer mode. So I can only complain about that. But if you have the choice, don't play in streamer mode. Use the real music. It might be a little bit better.
That's interesting. It did feel very Life is Strange-esque with the music to me, too. I was like, oh, this is new. And
yeah.
Was just surprised because, like, in the previous ones, it's basically they have the O-Death from Until Dawn or the Dark Pictures variations of it at the start of the game with the credits. But then really, like, there's music throughout it, but it's not in the same way where it's like, okay, here's an Ariana Grande song like Jacob mentioned or like anything like that. Mm-hmm. But Life is Strange does that all the time.
Yeah.
Getting Ari ain't cheap though, because I know Life is Strange, they'll get like random indie rock band that fits with the theme, but like Ari ain't cheap, my guy.
Yeah, for real. That is
Ari gets paid.
That is surprising that they somehow chose to make that deal.
2K money.
That must be it. 2K said we've got to have her in this. Pay whatever we need to. Yeah. So this sort of sets the scene. Something's a little ominous. Chris being freaked out was worrisome to me as the player, but not to any of these teenagers because they're teenagers and don't care.
Yeah. I also meant to say there as well, I agree with the whole setup of the hunters. I really thought it was a good hook. I was like, oh no, are they hunting the kids? Are they hunting something else? Like, what is going on? And I was so there for it. I love those kind of stories. And like, especially it was just so dramatic with him covering himself in blood. And I was like, okay, that's not a normal hunt at the very least. So what on earth is happening? I loved it.
Yeah, same. I was like, this is creepy. They're going to literally kill one of these kids one by one. Like I was ready for it and afraid of it. So that's how I felt then. The party, though, ends up happening, so you've got all your characters kind of off doing their things. So you got Emma and Jacob breaking into a store. They take beer, shotgun shells, snacks. Dylan and Ryan go charge the phones. While they're exploring Chris's office, they find this surveillance room that was hidden and is pretty weird. You also have Abby and Nick going and collecting wood while they're out there. And in this too, you have Nick get attacked by a boar. This kind of introduces you to your like QTE elements of the game. Like we mentioned earlier, this is just showing this being a long intro, being several chapters in this game of learning how to play and meeting your people. So very much that Life is Strange stuff we talked about. You have later Jacob, Nick, and Caitlin go to the shooting range to try that out. This sort of culminates. All the groups done all their things, all this stuff. They get together. It's the bonfire. And like teenagers do, they play Truth or Dare. A few kind of go on, but the culminating event is Caitlin dares Emma to kiss either Jacob or Nick. And she goes and kisses Nick and like makes out with him pretty aggressively, I would say. And Nick makes out back for sure. He's not innocent in this. This, of course, upsets Jacob and Abby, who both storm off. This leads to Emma and Nick going after them. Then you have sort of this awkward moment at the fire where it's just Caitlin, Ryan, and Dylan, and they're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. So that's sort of where our characters are here.
I was so mad. I was like, first of all, truth or dare never goes well. Never goes well.
Never in the
Why
world.
would you play truth or dare? But secondly,
Oh, because you're a home wrecker. Got it.
I guess from the beginning, these characters have like been really mean to each other quite a lot, and it's hard to believe they're actually friends. And then this just makes it so much even worse because they're just setting themselves up to to get their hearts broken. But like, this really made me dislike Emma because, like, she'd already had the conversation with Abigail earlier, saying like, "Oh no, Jacob's actually really nice. It's just not going to work out because of the distance and stuff. But he is sweet." So like, it's not like she was breaking up with him because of him being like full on or like an ass. It's just because of, she made it out anyway, it was just because of the distance. But then she's been so horrible to him. She's like, he's actually hurting because of it, because he's like in love with her. And so then why does she feel the need to just like keep rubbing it in his face? And then she gets flirty with him later, and I'm like, stop messing this guy around, Emma. And the fact that she did it as well to the guy that her best friend likes, it's just, who wins in
It's
this
double
situation,
damage.
Emma?
You're hurting at least two people.
Like that, you
You're
wouldn't
hurting
do that to your
potentially
friend.
3, etc. Yeah.
It's just I didn't like her from here, to be honest, and she never redeemed herself for me. But it was a good setup, I guess, for the horror kind of trope where everyone gets split up, because everyone is currently split up.
Yeah, I think it did its job for sure of making everyone mad and separated. But yeah, dick move, both by, I think, Caitlin instigating and then Emma going for it. Both.
Is this the section where we start seeing like little, like we start hearing things in the woods? And is this where we see like a camera view of something like with veins over top of it from inside the woods?
I think that's kind of been happening throughout. So when Dylan found the surveillance room, you see like a flash of something on a camera if you look at them. And then I think it's right after this when Abby's like stormed off because she's upset that Emma's just kissed Nick. And that's when she starts hearing the whispering, I think, because the sun has just set while they're playing this game of Truth or Dare. Like, it's officially dark now at the end of the game where everyone's stormed off.
Yeah, I think you're right. We do get all these like little instances when people are alone where it seems like that stuff can start to creep in too, where it's like you hear that whisper or anything like that.
Got it.
So from here, I would say that this is where the game really starts to go off, where things start happening. It's not the Life is Strange of this. We start jumping into the Until Dawn of this game. So you have Nick going after Abby. While Nick is going after her, he gets mauled by this animal that just pops out of nowhere. Randomly, a gunshot like stops this animal from attacking Nick, and Abby is forced to run away, and this animal starts chasing after her. And you've got, all your QTEs and all of that here, having to escape what's going on. So all of a sudden, shit's turned all the way up. You pick up with Jacob. He's crying at the lake. Emma says, let's skinny dip. It's the last night. This is where you get a moment where Jacob has the rotor arm that we talked about, and he swims with it for some reason. And he drops it. And
Silly Jacob.
Yeah, for real. And he gets caught in some like barbed wire under the water. And you see this bloated body. And this actually presents the first time that a character can die. Is if you don't make the right decisions here, Jacob can just get stuck and drown. So like the game is ready to go at this point. So that's I don't know, something. So you each had the rotary arm too. So you went through this. Did Jacob survive this for both of you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
It was the first time, like you said, like I was gripping the controller, because you get that fake out that we already talked about, where there's like a boar in the woods where you practice the don't breathe sections. And one thing, the vignettes were pretty cool, of like the tutorial vignettes. They reminded me a lot of like BioShock tutorial stuff, where it was like a 60-second like old timey like cartoon to kind of teach you some of the core mechanics. But yeah, you get the fake out with the boar, and you think that this maybe is a fake out. But I'm glad I didn't fail it, because he can die here.
I was just so mad at him for taking skinny dipping, man. Why are you taking a car part in while you're skinny dipping? And I had a moment where like I felt like I chose all the wrong things. I was like, save the thing. No, let's go. Save the thing. Let's leave. And I feel like maybe if I'd made one more wrong choice, it could have gone very wrong there. It was intense. But he did survive.
Did you get to keep the rotor arm?
I did not.
You didn't? Did you keep it, Jacob?
Yeah, I honestly, after that, like kind of forgot about the rotor arm. I did not. I don't think I kept it.
Okay. I think I feel like I forgot it as it went through, but I think I did keep it, and I was like, okay, why doesn't Jacob take this to the car and leave? Like, you have it, but it didn't ever happen, so I don't know. Because I did save it, but I didn't die. You know, like I managed to do whatever the right sequence was there to not die, but also keep it. So I was like, you should leave. Like, this is the time where you get in that car, because you can actually fix it. You have the power. But for whatever reason, Jacob doesn't do that. We pick back up, though, with the group at the campfire. So Caitlin, Ryan, and Dylan, they hear Abby screaming, so they run to go find her. Dylan stays at the campfire, though. He's like, that's scary. I don't want to. So Caitlin and Ryan go. Caitlin takes Abby back with her to the campfire. Ryan, though, takes the shotgun to go look for Nick. When Ryan is out finding Nick, he sees Bobby, one of the hunters, pulling Nick away, like dragging him. And you have the option to like shoot at Bobby, or not, or yell at him. For me, how this went was, I think I shot towards him, or maybe shot Bobby's finger off, or in the finger. But then Nick gets up and manages to escape with Ryan. How did this go for you guys?
Yeah, so mine was a little bit different in that I shot, like, because my thought was like, I don't want to kill Nick, right? So at this point, I kind of shot in the general direction of the hunter, didn't hit him. But I think the way it works is Nick bites the hunter's finger, and then the hunter blows his finger off with a gun, which you don't fully understand why until a little bit later in the game.
Yeah, the same thing happened to me, I think, where the finger thing happened, yeah.
Okay, cool. Actually, now that you're saying it, I think that's what happened for me, too. And I was like, whoa, this is wild. This dude shot his finger off.
Yeah, for a reason you don't fully understand why yet.
Right, yeah. Then Jacob also runs to find Abby. After his skinny dipping, he hears Abby scream, so he goes after her also. And in the woods, he gets strung up. He gets caught in like a tie that strings him up upside down. And Bobby shows up and just pours blood on his face and kind of like lets him leave. Yeah. And it's like, now you'll be safe. And you're like, what on earth is happening? Like, I don't know how you felt, but I was like, I thought Jacob was just going to get gutted while he was hanging upside down. And when he didn't, I was like, all right, I don't know what to make of these hunters, but I'm still scared.
Yeah, I was like, what is he pouring on his face? Is it acid? Is it like something to attract an animal to eat his face? Like, is there a dog waiting off on the side, waiting to chew his face off? I truly didn't understand, like, not what I was expecting. And we find out later why. But yeah, this game's all about swerves, and they swerve me well here.
I think I was like starting to put stuff together by this point where like when he cut us down, I was like, what if they are hunting whatever the thing is that bit Nick, and actually because we weren't supposed to be here because we're the ones that wrecked the car, like we're just an annoyance now. That's kind of where I was at, and they were like, for God's sake, we're gonna have to put the blood on these kids, because I was thinking maybe the blood like masked our scent, like kind of zombie style, like, you know, in zombie films where they put zombie guts on themselves to like to do that. That's what I kind of thought was happening, and especially then when he let us go. So yeah, I was like starting to be like, okay, things aren't as they seem here. I don't like, we would have been dead if you wanted us dead at this point.
Yeah, that's true. I felt like things aren't as what they seem, like you said, and I was like, okay, maybe they're not the threat anymore. I did not get as far as you did, though. You're smarter than me, so.
I also had chat like talking away as well, so like we're trying to put things together and theorizing every which way.
What does your chat think immediately? Like, not to lead the witness here or like get ahead of ourselves, but like, did your chat have any indication of what was to come?
I have a rule, so like if people knew what was going to happen, then don't backseat, don't spoil. But if people didn't know, then they could theorize with me. So I didn't get it spoiled by anyone that knew. But I think basically everyone was just kind of backwards and forwards on the hunters. It's kind of same as me. I already go wild on my theories without the input of the chat.
No.
Yeah. So it's like it's fun, actually. It's fun to be able to kind of discuss in real time what you're thinking and why you're thinking it, and then someone else will have a counterpoint. It's good.
That's awesome. That's great. I'm glad it didn't get spoiled too, because when we get the reveal shortly, it was cool to get, but I was glad that I didn't know. I think that's for me with the Supermassive games in general, since they sort of surprise you on what they do. I try not to know anything. I just am like, I know I like Supermassive games, so I will play it at some point. Like, that's sort of
Yes.
my attitude about them at this point.
Yes, same. That, like, I don't need to see anything going in. I know that I'm going to play it. I know I'm going to enjoy it. So the little, like, the more less that you can know, the better.
Mm-hmm.
I think by this point, I think I was getting quite ahead because we were theorizing so much. We had also noticed that in all of the cinematic montages they'd been doing, they like always started with a full moon. So we were already going down like monstery routes, like I don't want to say just yet, but you know, we were getting the discussion going in mostly the right places, I think. So we didn't like get surprised when things were revealed, except for in some ways, which we'll get to.
Can I be honest with you, without getting super spoilery? There was 3 different directions, and Dan, you can stop this if you want me to save it. But there were 3 directions that I was thinking. I'm like, is this zombies? Is this vampires? Because vampires get stronger in the full moon, or is this werewolves? Like those are the 3 directions I was going in, and I couldn't quite figure out what it is. And it's interesting because the next Dark Pictures game is actually the first one in my mind where they're specifically saying what it's about. It's about like a serial killer, where normally they don't really tell you what the supernatural twist is going in.
These are some amazing points that I wanted to talk about as well today, especially about this game. So like I wasn't thinking zombies, but I was having the same thoughts as vampires and werewolves. But like, this is one of the reasons that I actually really like this game, is because a lot of them are very mystery, like, you don't know what it's going to be about. And like, even like getting into the late game, you're still like not entirely sure most of the time. But this one was like, I feel like it was about a thing, and they just went all in on that genre. And I think that's what they had to do after like Until Dawn, which was like a mix of all different genres. I feel like this one heavily went into the genre that it went into, and it's better for it. Like, not better than Until Dawn, but this game itself is better for just leaning into what it did rather than trying to have like a million other genres as well, if that makes sense. Like, I love it for that.
Yeah, no, that does make sense.
Totally with you.
Yeah, because I feel like with the, like, Until Dawn, you know, the reveal doesn't come till, I don't know, chapter 8 or something like that, like way at the end of the game. This one, it's like they took a while with character building and all of that stuff, setting the stage. But then once they do, you find out pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's just...
They don't waste a lot of time with that. Then it's, okay, how do you deal with this situation? Which I agree is pretty different. Usually you find out right at the end, oh, it's this.
Yes, there was still some mysteries that they left and stuff. But as far as like the general threat, once it starts, it's happening. And you kind of... There's lots of clues that you can easily kind of pick up on what it is, and it's just, yeah, like you said, how do we deal with this, rather than being like, what is going on? This is what's going on. Let's do it, baby.
Right, exactly. From these weird encounters, we start to regroup, though, and in your regrouping, you actually have a spot where Ryan can accidentally shoot Jacob, which is wild. But so you've got your campfire crew regrouping. I think you have Jacob go back there. Caitlin, Abby, Dylan, injured Nick, and Ryan are all there. So most of the group is back at the campfires. You have Emma on the island just vlogging. Then she gets chased by our monster, which is our reveal. It's a werewolf. What? In this, she is exploring around sort of the island. And then you end up having this werewolf chase you. You're kind of running along like a boardwalk kind of above the ground. To escape, you end up kind of going across into the water. Zip line.
Like,
there we go.
you climb up into the treehouse because this werewolf is like locked in the attic of the treehouse or something, and she's like, oh, this door is moving. Let's see what it is. It might be a monster that's going to kill me. So she opens the door, and the monster that's going to kill her comes out. And you have this big chase scene. But then in the end, you want to get to where the monster originally was so that you can get away through the zip line.
Yep. And if you go into the zip line, you end up falling in the water, and the monster won't follow you. You see that, oh, it doesn't like water. It won't like jump after you.
Quick question for y'all. How did you like the werewolf design? Because I think the one thing that I was maybe surprised about is that like it didn't initially like immediately scream werewolf, just because I felt like they were kind of more hairless than I thought that werewolves were going to be. Like, I just thought there was going to be more hair and fur.
I liked it.
Maybe I'm the only person like that.
No, I liked it because it was also questionable. Like, I feel like it reminded you that just because it's a werewolf, it can still have... We don't know the rules of these werewolves. Like, right. It could be a hybrid. It could be, like, we don't know. Just from seeing it specifically, how it works. And I actually really like the design. Like, I think it's similar to some things I've done before, but I don't mind that at all. And especially because there's something that happens later when you actually see how it happens, which we'll talk about in a bit. Like, it was jaw-dropping for me, and it makes sense. Like, we'll get to it. Sorry, you go.
No, that's good. I think too. I think for me, right, they didn't look exactly how I'd expect a werewolf to look, but like Noob said, I think when you see it, you're like, okay, cool. I can roll with this. I like this.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, Abby, Ryan, Dylan, Caitlin, and Nick head back to the lodge. You've got injured Nick getting taken care of by Abby. Caitlin's looking for medical supplies. Ryan and Dylan try to find a landline in Chris's office to be able to make a call out to say, you know, Nick got attacked by an animal. We need help. When they pick up the phone, though, the line goes dead almost immediately. They do find another gun, so Caitlin has a gun and Ryan has a gun. Ryan and Dylan are going to go to the radio station. Dylan, as a camp counselor, would do the radio announcements, so he thinks maybe we could broadcast out, and perhaps that could get us help. While inside the lodge, so Ryan and Dylan head out, Bobby shows up in the lodge, and Caitlin's there with a gun. He can disarm Caitlin, so he took Caitlin's gun from me when I played, and Caitlin and Abby and Nick run away.
Yeah, same here. Like, oh my goodness, she's like, I hear things in the lodge. Let's go and investigate. She takes the gun and she just gives the gun away and comes back and says, we need to leave. It's like, we could have guessed that, Caitlin. You didn't have to go and give the gun away. It was one of these, like, it was a stealth-ish section where you're, like, kind of stalking to see what's happening, and then, like, really poorly, in my opinion. Like, I think he could have easily seen her. And then he does see her. And thankfully for me, I guess what we haven't mentioned, well, we mentioned in passing, was the tarot cards, which are some collectibles.
Yes.
They're very hard to find, but between each chapter, the old lady fortune teller that you talk to, she will lay out the cards that you found in the chapter and give you a choice. She will read a little description, and then you can choose which tarot card you want. And that is like the totems in Until Dawn, where it gives you like a very, very small little flash into something that can happen. And I had seen us getting away, so I kind of knew what I was aiming for, so that all worked out smoothly for me. But I can't believe we forgot about the tarot cards. I think they'd already influenced some things that I'd seen also. But yeah, what about you guys?
I had the benefit of the tarot cards, which, like, you really have to be watching, because unlike, in my opinion, playing the Dark Pictures games, I think you get a more explicit view, and it's less quick. These are like sometimes a 2-second flash of something that, at least for me, like, it takes a second to process, to figure out, okay, what character, what just happened. I won't lie, there's a couple of them where I just kind of, like, I wasn't looking, like, closely enough, and it just kind of went over my head. I had the benefit here of having my partner and her twin brother having played this game like a few months ago, so I did get a hint of something that happens right, like, in this same section before the kind of change in timing. That I will say it in a minute, but I'm really thankful that I had that, because you can lose a character in about 2 bullet points that we're going to talk through. And I'm really glad that I had my partner to say, like, hey, just heads up, like, in this section, just be, like, really careful. Wait.
Yeah.
That's good to get that heads up. You're right. They were much faster. So I felt like I got, like, a little bit of info from them, but not as much as some of the other games that were kind of like, okay, cool, I'm seeing this scene, I should be skeptical. For me, I didn't, like, make any aggressive moves. Like, I felt like I let Caitlin get disarmed, because I was like, oh, I guess if Bobby wanted to kill us, he would have killed Jacob, but he didn't, so I guess I won't shoot at you. Like, I felt like, I don't understand you, but you don't seem to be exactly bad, because, you know, you would have just killed Jacob while he was upside down.
He very confidently just, like, takes the shotgun out of Caitlin's hand, and it's just kind of funny. She's just running away, and he just, like, grabs it, because he's, like, 7 feet tall. Like, Ethan Suplee is, like, he used to be a much bigger man, lost a lot of weight, but he's still a big man in real life.
Yep.
So imagine this, like, I'm exaggerating, but a 6.5 foot tall guy who just, like, you're running away from, and just, like, very calmly grabs a shotgun out of your hand that's almost a toy to him. It was kind of comical.
It was very funny. We had a laugh about it. But that's actually a really good point as well about, like, I didn't want to shoot him because I wanted to know what they were doing. I didn't know of their motivations yet. And I was very just suspicious because, like, even though he didn't kill Jacob when he could have, they're not communicating with us. So it's like, this would easily be solved if they were good, because they would just say, hey, we're here to help you.
Right.
But they don't do that either. So there's this, like, ambiguity about
Ambiguity, yep.
ambiguity. That's it. About like what exactly they are. So I didn't want to shoot them, but I also didn't want to get caught. But I think you can eavesdrop on them a little bit as well, and it didn't clear anything up. I think what it.
For a second, I'm like, are they cannibals? Because like that would explain the like biting his finger. I'm like, maybe he wants to taste of his own meat. I don't know. And I thought was like, could these guys be cannibals? And that's why they aren't killing us. They're trying to get fresh meat back to their house.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, I like that too. That yeah. If they would have just said, "Hey, we're the people who kill werewolves," you could have been like, "Okay, cool." But they don't do that, so you're still like, "I'm skeptical of you, but I don't know if you're bad."
Yeah.
We pick up with Ryan and Dylan, though, at the radio tower trying to broadcast a message. It's kind of silly. Dylan gives a weird message out that was funny.
This is the scene that I was saying earlier where I really started to bond with Dylan. Like, you get to spend some time with Ryan, and Dylan's, like, opening up saying, like, yeah, maybe I'm a bit of an asshole sometimes, but, like, it's a front that I put on because people like that, rather than like the real me or whatever. Like, people prefer that, so I do it to please others. And I don't know, I really bonded with him with what happens next too. But I don't know if what happened to me happened to you based on the notes, so I'm really interested, so I need to know how it went for you.
Okay, no, that's good. So I guess for me, this experience, they get to the radio broadcast, they try to broadcast out, the werewolf hears them and starts to attack the house. And Dylan is like, oh, let's, like, basically make, like, a really loud static back out. Animals' ears are sensitive. This will make it run off. And so he does this, and the werewolf runs off because it's, like, the frequencies, I don't know, hurt its ears, so it runs away.
Did you not have any drama with that?
Yeah, I was gonna bring up the drama between the two of them.
Mine worked out well, so I'm curious what happened for you two.
Do you want to go, Jacob?
I knew, but I don't know if we're talking about the same thing. I think that these two characters were clearly queer, both of them, and they were like exploring or almost like trying to suss out the other one to be like, do you feel the same way? Like, do you have the same feelings that I do? And they were trying to like feel it out between them. What I appreciate is that like in a lot of horror films, there's this trope like called bury your gaze, where the LGBTQ plus characters are typically the ones that are killed. They're more expendable than the average character. So what I appreciate here is that while these two characters are exploring like their potential relationship or their feelings for each other, that they weren't just like horribly killed.
Yeah.
That's true. That isn't what I was talking about, but yeah, like I loved their relationship. Like, basically, you can, as Ryan, you can kind of lean towards Caitlin or Dylan from the start. And I didn't have a preference because I'm not into the games for like the romances and stuff. But Dylan and Ryan like naturally came together in mine, which was really cool. And like it did just happen in a natural way. Because like I say at the beginning, I liked Ryan and I didn't like Dylan, so I wasn't even like shipping for them. But by now, I think they were like really figuring each other out and stuff. But did nothing dramatic happen to you guys with the monster?
Not for me.
Okay.
No, I guess not.
So the monster kind of, as they're trying to set up this feedback loop to disorient the monster and scare it off, Dylan's trying to fix the machine that got broke. So he's like trying to fix the wires, and the monster like bursts through the ceiling and like grabs hold of Dylan, pulls him up to the ceiling, and chomps on his hand. So Dylan's bitten. Ryan like scares it off a little bit. Oh, I guess. Yeah, so Ryan somehow scares it off. Dylan's laid on the ground, like, with his hand bitten. And he's, like, freaking out. He's like, oh, my God, it's all veiny. It's infected. Like, it's spreading. Cut it off. And then you have the decision to just tell him not to panic or to grab the chainsaw that's being stored in this room and chop his hand off.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because previously, you notice it when Nick got bitten, his leg is all, like, it looks infected, and Dylan's very aware of, like, infection, and, like, he's been taught about rabies and stuff, so he's, like, he's already kind of set this up. So for me, I was like, and because I'd seen the guy blow his own finger off when he got bitten, I was like, oh my god, we do need to actually chop it off right now. So we grabbed a chainsaw, chopped Dylan's hand off, and set away the feedback loop and scared the monster away. And it was so dramatic, and Dylan's just response to this entire trauma was amazing, and I just loved him for it. He was just like, he powered through. He's lying on the ground, like, no hand left, just the stump. And he's, like, guiding Ryan with what he needs to do to set this thing up. The monster runs away, and then he just he just starts laughing. And then he, like, looks at his hand, and then he's like, oh God, what have I done? Why did you chop my hand off? And he's like, the panic starts setting in a little bit. And he's like, you told me to chop your hand off. And he's like, oh my god. So they, like, bandage it up, and everyone's like, what happened to your hand? He's like, it's gone. And he deals with it so well. He's like, they have some humor about it later, and that's a decision. He can either, I guess from you guys, he doesn't get bit, but whatever I did wrong, he got bit, so then he could either be bitten and stay bitten, or chop his hand off.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very dramatic and amazing.
That's wild.
Yeah, I'm watching this right now. This is crazy.
It's so
This
good.
is like Telltale's The Walking Dead level of, like, limb shit.
That's wild. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And it happens again while he's going to grab the aux cable that's, like, hanging, right?
Yeah.
Ah, wild. Okay.
I think the monster pulled it, like, on purpose. I'm not entirely sure how smart they are, because, like, it's alluded to earlier that they were, like, cutting the power and the phone lines and stuff. So I don't know if the monster did it on purpose to lure him there to be able to grab him. But I don't know what I did differently to you guys that you guys didn't get him bitten. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's wild. That okay, so Dylan is one hand less for you.
Yes.
For you. That's wild. Okay. After that dramatic event, we've got Jacob and Emma, I think, off of the island, but then they run away from a werewolf a different time. Also, we've got Nick, Caitlin, and Abby together, and you have Nick start to get pretty weird. He's like, you just smell so good, and, like, stuff like that, and you're like, all right, this is getting bizarre. And
it's so creepy. I hated it. It was awful.
And he has this part where he, like, pushes Abby, like, really hard, and you can take the gun and shoot Nick, which I chose to do.
This is the place where I was given the heads up by my partner, where she was like, hey, she, like, came in the room as I was playing this section, and she's like, hey, I'm gonna give you a heads up. Do you want the heads up? I'm like, yes. She's like, something bad is about to happen. Just know, don't hesitate to shoot. That's what she said, and then kind of walked out.
Oh.
And so I knew that, like, oh, Nick's gonna turn. When he turns, that means I can shoot because it won't kill him. So that's when I went, okay, well, I'm gonna shoot him, and I did, because if you don't in this section, Abigail gets, like, straight up, like, picked up, head, like, neck snapped, murdered.
No, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
Abigail can die here too.
Yeah,
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's wild. So you shoot Nick, but what's wild too, once you shoot him, he just basically, like, blows all his skin off, and then boom, werewolf.
Yeah.
So there's just, like, blood that shoots off everywhere. This was cool. I really like this as a transformation to being a werewolf. You're like, oh fuck, like, it just it just really drops it. It was really cool. I like
it was
that.
so good.
Yeah, absolutely not the transformation I was expecting.
Yes, usually it's, like, slow and painful and, like,
Yeah.
stuff like that. And it kind of seemed like that's what was happening to Nick a little bit. But then just all of a sudden, like, I think this alone justifies the design. Like, whether you like the design of the werewolves or not. Like, for this specifically, like, I loved it because I don't know what I was expecting. I also shot him because he had, like, for a little while, he'd been getting creepier and creepier. At this point, my skin was crawling. And, like, I knew it wasn't him. It was what was happening to him. But he had literally just flung her across the room. I was like, she's got to shoot him. No one else is really paying attention right now. I'm very glad I did that if she dies, if you don't. But then, like, just right after you've shot him, he kind of starts, like, standing up. And then there's just this boom and just red everywhere. Everyone is covered in blood. The walls are covered in blood. And all of his skin is just shot off his body. And I was just, like, jaw dropped. Amazing. Probably my favorite moment of the game.
Yeah, that whole section, because immediately after, then, like, there's a knock on the door, and that's when a character who, like, again, the beginning, we got the swerve that we normally don't get in Dark Pictures games, where a character from the intro, who you think is probably dead or captured or something, just, like, kicks down the door with an eye patch on, clearly lots of damage to her face, and it's Laura from the first chapter of the game who just busts into the story.
Yeah. Awesome reveal. You're like, oh, you're...
Awesome reveal.
Yeah. Oh, you're back, and also you look like you've been fighting werewolves for a while. You're like our veteran. It feels like
this is the Battle of Los Angeles now. Got it. Cool.
Yeah, which was fun. So, because Laura shows up... Oh, sorry, go Noob.
Oh, it's all right. It's just right before that, we forgot to mention that there's a body in the pool, and that's a result of her.
Yeah.
Like, I think this happens for everyone, but it's like right while Nick is being creepy to Abigail and stuff. Like, you hear a gunshot, and then you go over to the pool, and it's just full of blood, and then there's like a woman's body face down. I think. Can you tell it's a woman's or not? It's just a body, and then it does a chapter change.
It happens so
like,
fast also.
It's and you do get a flash of Laura there as well. You like see her in the distance, but you can't really tell it's her. And you're like, who is that? Who is this? What is going on? Because also some of your other people might be unaccounted for. So you're like, who's the body? Who's died? What's happening? And then they go inside. And then it gets revealed, that Laura shows up at the door.
Yes, that's right. Good call. Bringing that up. So Laura comes in the door, and you get a flashback. Laura kind of catches you up with what's gone on. And our group is kind of resistant. They're like, who's this hunter that showed up randomly? It turns out she was one of the counselors that had never shown up. So they get that put together. But in our flashback, we've got Laura in a jail cell, and she gets to hear Max turn into a werewolf in the cell down from her. It's separated by like a brick wall, so she can't see it, but she hears it happen, and like sees the blood shoot out, like we saw with Nick. Sheriff Travis and her have some interactions kind of along this way. He's pretty cryptic, and things like that. She's kind of trying to answer things or engage, depending how you play it. A month later, Sheriff Travis, though, puts Laura outside of Max's cell and is like, you need to see this transformation. When this happens, Laura is sitting a little too close to the cell, and Werewolf Max rips one of her eyes out, and also breaks, like, the handcuffs that she was attached to, I don't know, the wall on or whatever. So she gets to kind of snoop around the sheriff's station. She puts, like, an eye patch on her face, and looks around, finding kind of information as to what's going on, and then also looking for a way out. So, and is biding her time. At least the way I played this was like, I don't know that I'll get out today, but I want to be ready to get out when the time is right. I don't know if you two played it that way or not.
Yeah, all I knew is I got one of the tarot cards that, the tarot card I got previously was like a scene where Laura has a syringe of some kind, or like I forget if it was a syringe or just like, yeah, it was a syringe.
Yeah.
That was through the bars. So I was like, oh, I need to make sure that whatever I do, I need to find this syringe. And then the other important piece is like there's a loose brick where you can hide things inside of your cell. So I'm like, okay, great. I know this tarot card told me syringe, so I need some kind of syringe. I'm going to hide it there. I'm going to bide my time. I'm going to gain his trust, and then hopefully get the heck out of here. But like this is a pretty long section, because I know that I DM'd you guys and I was like, how much longer is left in this game?
Yeah.
Because this section is actually quite long.
Yep.
It is. It's very long. It goes through like, because obviously it's taken an entire month, I guess, or month plus, because he's being a werewolf twice while they're in this jail.
Yep.
And it's a lot of like context around not necessarily the Hackett's, but around Travis specifically as well. And just Laura and Max like talking it out, what had happened, and they actually start like questioning, could I be a werewolf? Because like he had been like mortally wounded, and then the next day he didn't have a scratch on him. And so thankfully, obviously, they were still in the jail when that happened, and they were like making plans about how they're gonna get their escape, because they didn't want to be in this jail for the rest of their lives. And they like decide, I don't know if it's the same all the time, but we decided to like try and gain his trust, the sheriff's trust, so that we could get our escape easier. So yeah, when at this moment, like, he is like, he shows her, she gets her eye gouged out. It's really brutal. Like, it just happens so fast, and it's just, her eyes just completely clean out of its socket. And you get this control to walk around the police station. And I had also had the same tarot card as you, Jacob. So, like, I did the same as you, walked around, found the syringe. Like, you can hack into his computer and find out that he was, like, putting takedown notices on the podcast that was talking about the Hag of Hackett's Quarry, because there's this whole other kind of mystery about what's going on with the ghost in the forest, and they're trying to hide that for whatever reason. We just don't know how it links, because there'd been a fire at a freak show in the past, like 6 years ago.
Yep.
And you find out a lot of backstory, but not answers about this stuff, just kind of filling in some context a little bit. And I mean, obviously you know that she's going to get out, because she's at the camp right now, but I had the syringe tarot card. I found the syringe. I went back to my room, but I completely forgot to hide the syringe. So, like, when he came back in, he searched us, found the syringe, and I was like, oh no, I've made a mistake.
Oh no.
And, like, ultimately we still got away, and we didn't have to hurt him doing it, but how
the heck did you get away?
We managed to steal his gun off him and lock him in the cell. I can't remember exactly how it happened, but I know we were definitely gaining trust. So after the eye fiasco, he really starts opening up to you about the werewolf situation and giving you information like this rhyme that tells you kind of that werewolves are frightened of water, that you need to take limbs off if they get bitten, and like all of this kind of information he actually just freely gives you. He also shows Max his transformation on video, so like he knows what's happening as well.
Oh, that's what the video is. Got it.
Yeah. And is this where you find out how to kind of fix it, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
It explains what the hunt is, basically. That you get so much information in this chapter. Yep. So during this information given scene, basically he opens up. It's actually in this rhyme. It's that in order to be cured, you have to kill the one that infected you with a silver bullet during a full moon. Very specific instructions in this rhyme. I wonder where they got it from. But basically, you also hear, oh my god, there's so much, because you also overhear a conversation between Chris and Travis, who are brothers. Chris is the leader of the camp. And you basically, Chris is like, I can't believe you still got them here. What the hell? And you kind of overhear basically that the Hackett family, at least Chris and his 2 kids, are werewolves. And Travis is trying to kill the one that infected them in order to get rid of this curse. And then obviously Laura and Max are talking after this, and they're like, right, you have been bitten by Chris. We need to kill Chris. This is how we cure you. We need to escape from here and get out. And that's when you either do your syringe, or for me, somehow we ended up... Well, I'll tell you what it was. She pretends to be having a fit, and he comes in. This is when you can stab him with the syringe, right?
Yeah.
She's like clutching her like stomach and like being really convincing. And, he goes inside the cell, and that's when you, like, have the syringe, and you just, like, turn around and, like, boop him in the neck with the syringe, and he immediately knows, like, it's so funny. He just is like, oh, no, and then passes out.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think basically just what happens is you steal his gun and you say, stay there, and you just back out of the cell. He's still, awake and alive, and you lock him in. Same effect. Okay. No, that's good. Yeah, good lore dump here, I feel like. But not in a way that felt weird. I felt like it made sense. Like, it didn't feel like they shoehorned it.
Now's the time.
Yeah, it felt right. And even the way that Travis interacted with them was like, he wanted to pull them into, you're going to help me solve this werewolf problem because you're part of it now, as opposed to, like, I don't know. It didn't seem like Travis was just a dick keeping you in a cell to do that. Instead, he was making you be part of his problem, which felt a little different to me, at least.
Definitely. I feel like, because obviously throughout, he's a bit shady because he's not open with you at the start and stuff. But, I mean, he wouldn't be. Like, how do you in this situation? But, like, as he starts trusting you, he really does, like, open up, tell you all the information. And I can't remember where I was going with that, but he does, like, perceivably change, and you can kind of feel that it's not a bond, but he's definitely bonding a little bit with you. Like, the niceness that you are doing to him, whether it's genuine or not, is kind of working over a lot of period of time.
Yep, I agree. We get brought back to the present. Laura says that she took Max to the island because she knew that werewolves don't like water, so I'm going to take Max as a human being to the island before the full moon, because if he transforms while he's on the island, he can't hurt anyone. It's all good. Which I would say Laura is maybe the smartest of any of these people for doing that. That's a great idea. Contain your werewolves. It's a good idea. Meanwhile, we find out that she had killed Kaylee. She thought it was Chris Hackett. So that was the body we saw in the water. Kaylee is Chris Hackett's daughter. Ryan knew her and was like, why did you kill her? And she says, I thought it was Chris. I thought it was the werewolf. And then also, Laura, after she'd killed Kaylee, she went back to the island to see if Max had changed because she thought she killed Chris. When she gets there, Max is still a werewolf. It comes up in a second. We find out she gets bit, though, also by Max while she was there.
Yeah. She had the, like, smart beginning of the plan, but then when she goes back, she just didn't expect him to still be a werewolf and got bitten. Like, she had half of a good plan.
Yeah, if she would have just watched from a boat or something. Like,
yes, stay in the boat.
Yeah, she could have been fine. Also, with the hunters, we get a werewolf and Jacob thrown into separate cages by the hunters in a basement. So you see a werewolf is captured, we see Jacob is captured. This takes us back to Laura, and she tells her plan after doing the story. We need to go kill Chris, so Max isn't a werewolf anymore. This is also the spot where Laura can reveal that she's been bitten, or she can try to hide it. I revealed it. Did you guys reveal it too?
I did, yeah. Always reveal it to me. Like, they're gonna find out eventually, so might as well build some trust to start with.
I for some reason I wanted to be honest here, and so I just showed the bite off. So everyone then immediately knew that I was a werewolf.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. So we all did the same thing. I think like Noob had said earlier, like they're going to find out anyway. It's a good way to build trust. So Laura and Ryan go off in search of Chris because Laura's got to kill him. And they're sort of a reluctant allies, I would say at this point, because Ryan, of course, has a big relationship with Chris and would not be one to want to see Chris die. But I think kind of sees it as his role to be part of this.
Yeah, he's trying to find a different way that doesn't involve killing because he's just trying to be an optimist. Where like,
yep,
good try, bro.
Yeah. And then meanwhile, Abby, Dylan, and Caitlin are going to return to the lodge to try to repair the car. When they get there, Emma's there. So Emma and Abby go hide in the basement. Dylan and Caitlin head off to the junkyard to find the part to repair the car. We then pick back up at the Hackett house. Laura and Ryan manage to get there. They make it inside the basement, and they see the werewolf and Jacob. For me, Laura shoots this werewolf because I was like, okay, maybe this is Chris. It wasn't Chris, but I went pretty shooty here, actually, at this point, too, because there's a part where Laura and Ryan, the Hacketts, kind of try to entangle them. Laura struggles with Chris Hackett's mom for the gun, and then I blow her face off.
Yo, this was nuts.
It was wild. It like goes off, and you like just see her face is gone. Yeah, so mother's dead. You have Bobby pull out this like big knife and like stab Ryan. And Ryan and Laura run away in separate directions. Ryan has a knife in him as he runs away.
Can I make one quick point? I want to make one quick point about the last section where it was like Abby, Dylan, and Caitlin. This is where Abby died for me. So Abby, Abby was chased into the basement by Emma the werewolf, and like I missed my shot with Caitlin, which then meant that Abby essentially had to run towards the same basement that Laura and Max got caught in the prologue, and Abby didn't barely made it and just was just destroyed, and so I lost Abigail there.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
I think
going
that's
back,
because...
blowing off the face, it's gross. Sorry, Noob.
Oh, that's all right. I was just going to say, I think that's because in the scene with Emma on the island, when she's having a confrontation with the werewolf, you must have got bitten then. And then if you didn't get bitten then you get the same thing that me and Dan had, where she's still alive here. And then with Abby.
No, Emma's in the car. She's a werewolf. She comes out and Abigail gets murdered.
Wow.
Very bad.
That's wild.
Very different to mine.
Yeah, for real. Okay, so we've had a couple variations so far between the three of us.
I do have another question from just before the face blown off section, which while you are in the room with the werewolf and Jacob in the cages, did you guys let Jacob out? Because that was a choice, and I made a mistake here.
Okay, so I killed the werewolf, or let Laura kill the werewolf that was sitting there, and I was then told we had to turn off the power to be able to let Jacob out, and so I know there's a couple different ways to do this, including a puzzle where you don't necessarily have to kill the werewolf, but you can let Jacob out of the cages if you do some kind of puzzle. But for me, Laura was in the attic. She was in her werewolf rage. She broke the fuse box, and that just let Jacob out, and he just kind of ran away.
Okay. Mine went differently to this. So I did not shoot the werewolf because I had about a 50-50 chance that this was going to be Nick, who had exploded into a werewolf earlier. So I had a feeling this was Nick, because I was still under the impression maybe they are protecting us. So I thought they've put Nick in there to protect everyone and himself, and then Jacob got caught in a bear trap. That's how he ended up here. Mm-hmm. So you would think that would mess your leg up, right?
Yeah.
So we had the choice to try and let him out or not. And so I didn't shoot the werewolf. I also didn't let Jacob out because I was thinking that they were putting him in the cage for his own protection and that he wouldn't be able to walk. I was like, the safest place for you is in that cage right now. So I just left him there, and then got caught, the same as you guys, with the Hackett family.
Okay, that I didn't let Jacob out in that, but I shot the werewolf. So from here,
Okay.
So our next culminating event then after this is the Hackett family in kind of a brawl with Laura. So you've got Laura and Jedediah and Travis and Ryan and Bobby, I think, are all there. And you end up in a spot where Laura then turns into a werewolf, and Chris Werewolf is there too, right? Because they go and find him on a chain, and he breaks off the chain, and they all fall in together. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think she's quite a werewolf yet. She's not a werewolf when they fall into the basement, but like
That's right.
It's like there's the bite decision, and then I think they fall into the basement. No, I'm wrong.
Okay, no, you're right. I messed that order.
Yeah, it's like up. Ryan has to pick whether or not he pulls out the knife or not. And then there's the decision of like, oh my God, you're bleeding out, but did you stab Bobby or not?
Oh, yeah.
And then there's the choice of, are you going to get bitten or not? And then you fall into the main floor of the house.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so I guess we'll deal with the Hacketts, then we'll pick up with our friends because I feel like we're in it. So yeah, Laura and Ryan meet up after both running away separately. They run away together. We get that decision Jacob mentioned of Laura. Ryan's bleeding out. He's not doing well. And Laura says, hey, you know I'm bitten. If I bite you, you'll also be infected. That way you won't die. Or you can, keep bleeding out. So for me, I had Laura bite Ryan because I was like, well, if we can solve this before the night, we turn into werewolves, then that's better than Ryan potentially dying. So I had Laura bite Ryan. Is that what you two did?
Yeah, same. I was really worried about. It was really strange because Laura just lingered a little too long biting Ryan, and I was like, "Is something bad about to happen here? Is she gonna literally turn and bite off his hand?" But I did let Ryan get bit because I'm like, the choice is either die or now Ryan's motivations are aligned with Laura's, and now he has to kill the same person, which is Chris Hackett, who he's been trying to avoid killing from the start.
Yeah. So I had a tarot card about this, so I saw this happening in advance, and like, it's like you said, we kind of have a cure in sight. So I was like, yeah, we have to. Like, he needs to heal, because he's been running around this house with a knife in his side. By this point, you may still have the knife in you or not. It depends if you like pulled it out, and like it depends if you stabbed Bobby as well. Do you guys stab Bobby? Because it's a small confrontation before Laura reaches you where you can decide to stab him or not, because, he might kill you.
I was really proud of myself.
I didn't stab him.
Okay, you didn't. So I was proud of myself here because before that you have to choose whether or not to pull out the knife. And I'm really glad I didn't, because if you ever get stabbed, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical professional, please don't follow my advice, but my understanding is if you're stabbed or you're impaled, you're supposed to leave the object in your body, because if you pull it out, you're going to cause more damage. So I'm like, great, I'm going to leave this knife in, and it's going to maybe hurt, but it'll hurt worse if I pull it out. So I left it in. I was super glad I had it. I pulled it out, stabbed Bobby, and that way, I think when you stab him, you then commit Bobby to death later.
Oh, wow. Mine, Bobby took the knife out of me. So I didn't stab him, but I was running away with it in me. And Bobby took it, and he was like, hey, that's mine, and takes it out of you. And I was like, oh my God.
Hilarious.
Holy. Okay. I can't remember specifically what happened with mine. I just know that he didn't stab me. No, he did stab. I got stabbed, but I didn't stab him. But I don't remember him taking it out and saying, "This is mine." Maybe he did, but that's amazing.
Yeah, I was like very off put. I was like, oh no, like is it gonna kill me now? Instead, he was like mad that I was. Yeah, it was like that. It was like I was stealing his knife. And I was like, you stabbed me with it, man. So
That's
okay.
so good.
After this, though, Ryan and Laura find a werewolf chained up, and it like rips the chains off the floor and starts coming at you. But then the floor collapses. You, Ryan, and the werewolf fall into the basement area. We have a chaotic situation. In this moment, Bobby and Travis rush in to try to deal with the situation. Mm-hmm. Laura turns into a werewolf here and starts attacking Travis. Bobby's trying to restrain werewolf Chris. And then Ryan has his gun. And he has sort of the moment, what do I do? For me, what I did is I had Ryan shoot werewolf Chris. I didn't know it was Chris, but I didn't want to shoot Laura. So I was like, I'm going to take my chances. I shoot werewolf Chris. Chris turns into a dead body. Laura goes back into a person. And we made it through this situation. Bobby's alive. Travis is alive. Ryan and Laura are people now. And from this, Travis explains that Chris actually wasn't the first werewolf. There's a werewolf called Silas, the wolf boy from the Freak Show that Noob had mentioned earlier. So Travis kind of enlists you and says, let's save what's left of my family.
Yeah.
I'm it sucks that Chris is gone, but let's do what we can. And Laura and Ryan are like, okay, we'll help you finish this. So this is how my like wild situation here goes. What happened for you two?
Mine was very different. Do you want to go first, Jacob?
Yeah, I'll go first. So my in my situation, very similar. Bobby, Travis rush in. Laura turns into a werewolf. Explodes in blood. Bobby tries to restrain Chris, and Bobby gets like disemboweled very quickly. So Bobby's dead. So I think it was probably he was weakened by the knife. So Chris just like straight up disemboweled him, and then I had the option to shoot, but everything happened so fast that I was like, wait, am I gonna shoot Laura or shoot Chris? But I didn't bother like even looking because the timer is so quick that I didn't bother really moving my reticle to see if there was another werewolf. So I just like headshotted Chris, and Laura turned back into a person. Did we talk about the junkyard really quickly? I don't know if we did. Also,
we didn't. We'll hop back to that.
But that was what I did. Noob, what did you do here?
Okay, mine. Okay, this was a big moment, and it also like kind of holds on to one of my biggest complaints about this game. But so what happened for me, right? All of this that you're explaining that happened within like 20 seconds or something. It was so fast. It's really difficult to see like who's where, what's going on and stuff. So yeah, Ryan's like manages to get the gun. Same thing as you guys. Laura turns into a werewolf. She's attacking Travis. Chris is stood there. Bobby wasn't stabbed, so Bobby did manage to try to wrestle with this was actually, it made me laugh a lot because he was like going in for a takedown on the werewolf, and then the werewolf was like illegally like elbowing the back of his head. I was like, this is so funny. And then I don't remember exactly, but that managed to get Bobby and Jedediah out of the room or whatever. So then Chris werewolf stood there. Laura werewolf is attacking Travis, but it's right. This game, the QTEs in this game are very slow usually. It's a problem I had at the start of the game where I was trying to do them too fast before it showed us what direction, and I was getting them wrong. So I learned to slow down. You have time with these QTEs, and when you are learning gun safety earlier on, they are like, you may not want to shoot. It really teaches you, like, be careful with your gun. Like, it's got spread, it's got, it's dangerous. You might not want to kill people. So, I'm still laughing at the wrestling situation. And, like, it gives me this choice. So, the timer, by the time I've blinked, has, like, gone down. I pan across the room to see the other werewolf, to see, like, what is the situation here. You can pan, yes. But by the time you've panned to the other werewolf, the timer's gone. I didn't press the shoot button, and Chris Werewolf smashes Ryan's face in.
Whoa.
Yeah, just smashes it with like a piece of wood or something. Ryan's face is gone.
Oh my god.
Travis picks up the smashed mirror that's lined with silver, stabs Laura with it, and while Laura's dying of being stabbed with silver, she decapitates Travis.
Oh my god.
And they are all just dead, murdered on the ground, because I didn't shoot my gun.
Oh, wow.
It was so fast in the blink of an eye. So basically, Chris survived that, and the two hunters survived that. But from what you were saying, where Travis then starts telling them there's an original werewolf that we have to kill the infected Chris and family. We didn't get any of that because they were dead. Anything from this point on that's conclusion with these people did not happen in my playthrough. There is nothing to supplement it. Like, that was almost the end of the game for me.
Oh my gosh.
It was because I'd heard people complain that the end can be quite abrupt. But this was even more abrupt than the real end. Like, it didn't quite end yet, because we still got some other characters to go and see. But these three that complete the story are dead. And throughout the playthrough, they'd already been hinting at Silas. We'd already figured out that there was going to be an original werewolf. Like, I was condemning Laura the whole time for wanting to kill Chris because we knew there was going to be an original werewolf that we could kill. And we kind of hoped that if we got the original one, everyone would be okay. We didn't know for sure, but, like, that's what I wanted. So also that was part of the hesitation to shoot, because it's like, I don't want to kill Chris right now, if I can help it. So I just wanted to survey the surroundings. But that specific, very story-heavy QTE gives you the blink of an eye to make a choice. And
That's actually crazy.
Yeah. It's a questionable game design decision in my point of view, because they shouldn't lock you out of the ending based on that one thing, in my opinion. But
especially that it's not the last thing in the game. Like, Until Dawn goes that way, but it's the last thing in the game.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, like, and right. So I understand.
Man, so your
I
chapter
don't
10
mind.
sucked then.
Sorry?
Then your chapter 10 like absolutely sucks then.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's that, like, we don't get much of a conclusion on the whole Silas thing. I know I've watched a little bit of what can happen afterwards, but I'll be interested to hear you guys. But yeah, it also during this whole thing as well, this is another thing that happened. There's a moment where Laura breaks the fuses because she's in a confrontation and the light's getting to her and she needs a quick escape, so she breaks the fuse to make the lights go out. What happens when you do this is it turns off the electric in the cages that Jacob and the werewolf are in. So the doors open and they are free to go, but of course I didn't kill the werewolf that was in those cages and I left Jacob there. So Jacob just gets mauled in the cage by Nick Werewolf. So I don't mind that, because that was a decision that I made back then, that, like, I left him there. I could have got him out and I didn't. That's on me. Fine. It's the fact that it takes away, based on a reaction response, that it takes away, like, the 3 characters died because of a bad reaction response from me. And it happens again later, but we'll talk about that when we get there.
Yeah.
So that's my Hackett House.
Oh my gosh.
Disaster.
Wild.
I lost nearly everyone in there.
Yeah, I feel like our endings are very different then. So one thing we skipped along the way with the Hackett House is there's a junkyard scene. So we've got Caitlin and Dylan there. They move a car with a crane to try to gather parts. During this moving, it makes a lot of noise. A werewolf comes and attacks. For me, there's a lot of action here. I imagine your characters can die here, but I did fend the werewolf off, and Dylan and Caitlin head back, I believe with the part they found, back to the lodge. Meanwhile, back at the lodge, Emma and Abby have found Chris's surveillance room. I think inside of there they find some silver bullets as well. So that's what happens there. Did either of you have anyone die at the junkyard, or were
Not
you good?
here. My deaths happened immediately after the Hackett House disaster that Noob had.
Okay, cool. From here, also, for Jacob and I, not for Laura though, or Noob, but Max is a human again. You have the option to either get off the island or stay there. For me, I had him stay on the island because I was like,
Oh, you're such a lucky man.
because you're out of the way, basically. I was like, if you stay on the island, you're out of the way. The game can solve itself. I'm guessing you took him to shore.
I did, and he was immediately killed.
Oh no.
Yeah, so I lost Max, and I think it was, again, I'm trying to remember which werewolf killed him, if it was werewolf Emma or werewolf, what was the werewolf in the cabin? That's
Caleb,
Emma, right?
maybe?
Caleb?
Caleb?
Yeah,
I think it's the son.
It's Caleb, yeah. So Caleb, one of the werewolves kills Max, and it is not pretty. So I'm glad you stayed on the island because I was killed.
Damn.
Also in this spot, for me, Jacob cries alone in the woods because when the electricity went out, he got to leave because Nick Werewolf was dead. This is where Noob's Jacob gets killed. Caitlin and Dylan prepare a spot in the lodge to fight against the werewolf. This is where werewolf Caleb shows up, and you kind of have a spot where you basically like run and gun through this because you have regular bullets. So your regular bullets hurt a werewolf, but it won't kill a werewolf, so it keeps coming. In this part, Abby and Emma slide silver bullets under the door, and Caitlin's able to get them, and boom, kill werewolf Caleb. And make it through there. But it sounds like your disaster was met here, Jacob.
Yeah, so I didn't have Emma in this situation because Emma was like off being a werewolf somewhere. So in my case, I had Caitlin and Dylan. And so they're, running through in different sections, and I was doing really well. I was like climbing over a beam. I was like running down the stairs. I was doing everything right. And then you get to the point where you're at a kitchen where there's a freezer. And I guess the thing you have to do is you have to grab some like item. I think it's like even like a bear or something to distract the werewolf. And I didn't have it. So I was in the kitchen. I was hiding. I did a don't breathe well. And then the option was either run or go in the freezer. And I decided to run. And since I didn't have this item to distract the werewolf, like there was no QTE, there was no don't breathe. It was literally, I said run, and both Caitlin and Dylan were killed. Dylan had his neck like chewed up, and Caitlin was taken and like neck broken and thrown across the room, and that was it. They both died in an instant.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it was not good.
That's wild.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm guessing then, so from here, this is probably Jacob and I's last scene, so Noob's is going to be pretty different, I'm guessing.
Can I just tell you what happened
Yeah,
during
please.
my Caitlin and Dylan
yes.
bit?
Yeah, do it.
Because this was my second moment as well.
This is
so
probably
this was after
like
the
your
Hackett's
end.
house.
Like this is probably almost the end of your game.
It is, yeah. It's literally, this is the end.
Oh,
so
wow.
basically it's the same as Dan's, basically exactly the same. Dylan's hiding in the kitchen, and we have the silver bullets as Caitlin. I got the QTE to shoot the werewolf. It's exactly the same type of QTE as the one that has just happened in Hackett's house. And so the first time it happened as well, in the entire game, it's the first time that you had that type of QTE was in Hackett's house. The second time was right now. I, for whatever reason, had an absolute brain fart, and I didn't pull the trigger.
Oh no.
And Caitlin just got murdered as well. I was like, no, I hate these QTEs. So I think I was overthinking everything because I was like, I have the silver bullets, but I don't know if I wanted the silver bullets because I don't know which werewolf this is. And I want to kill the original werewolf, but by this point, most of my teens are dead. So I'm like, maybe I was being too careful. But again, just the speed. If I had an extra half a second on that one, I would have pressed it. I was pressing it and I missed it. So, like, that's just, I needed that extra half a second. But instead, she got murdered, and that was the end of my game.
Wow. Okay, so Jacob and I, get this as our ending. We have Travis, Laura, and Ryan get in Travis's car to go look for Silas. And they go back to the highway where Laura and Max first got attacked. Because it turns out that's where the freak show Silas was part of was at, and that's where the fire had happened. And so Silas has sort of made that his lair of sorts. But on the way there, nearby there, the car gets attacked by werewolf Silas. And you have to play this right or your characters can get killed here.
Yep.
Mine played this right, though, so they got out. Did you survive this part, Jacob?
Yeah, so you can fail a QTE and get in a car accident, and correct me if I'm wrong, but not all the characters die here if you fail a QTE with the car?
I think a couple can. Maybe it's either maybe Ryan or Travis maybe can.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
So I made it through
if you fail it.
And then when I made it through this, you obviously like go into the woods. That is the same place in the woods that you had in the first chapter of the game. And you come upon like this, we've been told a lot about this circus starring Silas the Wolf Boy. And that's when you come upon this burned down circus. And either now or earlier in the game, Travis will tell you the tale of how, one of his grandchildren or one of his nephews tried to help Silas escape by starting a hayfire in the circus. And because that hayfire happened, it was dry hay, it got out of control, and like many people died. And so like there's also the Silas being a wolf boy and like biting one of his nephews, that's a problem. But also like he harbors resentment because like this fire killed many people from the town.
Yep. Yeah. So all around like bad scene gets you where they are. And so Ryan, Laura, and Travis approach the lair. They find Silas sitting there, and I think he's not doing well. And Laura has the gun. She has Silver, and you can choose to kill Silas or not. I killed Silas here, and I was like, the werewolf thing needs to be over, so I shot him. What did you do, Jacob?
Yeah, I thought about it for a second because for that decision, I was like, he's just a wolf boy. Like, it's not his fault. Should I be the one to like essentially deliver justice? But in my mind, I was like, yeah, but there's a few people that by killing one person, I can save more than one person, and I can just end any future problems. So I did kill Silas, but I immediately felt like really guilty about it because I'm like, this kid's it's just a kid, right? Or maybe not a kid at this point, but like has lived a terrible life, and I'm going to kill him. Oh, well. But the big reveal is, and this is new, this is kind of crazy, and you might think this is crazy, is you kill Silas, and then you immediately go to the fortune teller, and the fortune teller snaps in a way that you just like don't expect. You're like, what is going on here? You find out that the fortune teller is actually Eliza Vorez, who is Silas's mother.
Yeah. Okay, so I did actually get some conclusion on that, and that was because I found the Hierophant card, which was one of the optional tarot cards. If you find that card, you get the scene where it explains that. If you don't find the card, then you may not get that. So one grace is that I managed to find that card, so I did know about Silas. I just didn't get it from the story. I got it from the external character, the old lady, and when the end of the game she's threatening me saying you never come back into these woods or I'll haunt you for the rest of your life and you will not want to live your life anymore because I'll be there every like turn of a corner. I was like, whoa, okay sorry, goodbye.
I would love it if she haunted your game from there on, but I don't think we have that.
No, yeah. Well, and she says she'll like haunt you after this, right? She was like, he was just a boy. Wherever there's bad things, where there's a chill at your spine, I'll be there kind of stuff, which was like a good creepy fit to your end, I felt like.
Creepy.
Okay, that's that's the Quarry. From here, I wanted to move into a spot where just giving any general thoughts people had. So, Jacob, what do you have about this? That hasn't come up.
So look, I want more of the Quarry style games. If given the option between Dark Pictures and like Until Dawn / Quarry, where the budget's a little higher, it's a little longer, there's more star power. I really, really want more of these games, and I don't care if I have to wait for them. Ted Raimi absolutely crushed it. And I think that he probably had the best performance in the game. Maybe his character was the best well-written too, so he had an easier time. Like in many of these games, there are some unfair choices, but like these games are meant to be replayed so that you don't have to get the cheap endings as always. A few disappointments that we haven't talked about. There was a podcast that kind of permeated this universe, and like during the credits you can listen to a podcast where they kind of run through some of the major details of the game. I felt like it was a bit disappointing. And I know it's really hard to put these kind of like, essentially they had to like piece together a bunch of like, based on the evidence you gathered, different sections of the podcast, you'd be able to hear them. But I started listening and I'm like, this is kind of boring. I played through this whole game and I don't think it was really needed. It's the first Supermassive game I want to go back and replay. I was disappointed at launch that you didn't get the full set of co-op options. But I mean, if you're listening to this now and you want to play the Quarry now, all the options for co-op, movie mode, couch co-op, online play, they're all in there. So I think it's a great package all in all.
Yeah, I agree. If I would wait more. I would take less frequent Dark Pictures games to get more ones of this caliber at a less regular pace. This was awesome and has me excited about what Supermassive will do, kind of overall, for sure. What about for general thoughts for you, Noob? What did you have that hasn't come up that you wanted to talk about?
A lot of my general thoughts I've already kind of gotten out. I said the QTEs, like, I had problems with. I know that they're in general easier, but it was just, as I explained, like the end kind of got ruined because of that. So like, I wish that they would have had some other contingency, or just, if one person had died when I failed that QTE, not everyone for that ending, it might have just been a little bit kinder for the player, because I'm not going to play the entire game again just to see like how that end bit changes and stuff. So that's one thing. What I would say about it overall, like, I definitely enjoyed once it got started. Like, I liked the beginning bit, but I wasn't like enthralled by it. I was like I say, I took my first stream just to do the entire intro before anything actually happened. Mm-hmm. And by that point, I was like, okay, it's time for things to start happening, please. And they did, which was good. I think I could have done with the beginning condensed a little bit, but that could be because of playing the Dark Pictures anthology games, and they do tend to start quite quickly. Mm-hmm. And it could just be a trade-off that I prefer that kind of game rather than, which I don't know if that's true, because I do like these games that build the characters. It's just, I guess I don't think I like these characters enough to want that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that totally makes sense, because like, I don't know, for me, I'm totally, like, I love Life is Strange, so having a Life is Strange start to this, I didn't mind in itself. I didn't necessarily love the character so much to want that, but also I think I didn't expect it, because like, these games never do that. So I was like, oh, I kind of like this, but I didn't expect it. But I wonder if, next time around when a Quarry type game comes out from Supermassive that's bigger like this, if they do it again, I would be like, oh, cool, I like this. And presuming they continue to grow at making their characters more than their stereotype or whatever.
Right, yeah. See, I think I'm just a little bit the opposite of that, where it's like, I also like Life is Strange. I played like True Colors this year. I liked it a lot. But I like what they do in that game. But then when they did that in this game, I was like, I guess because it wasn't what I was expecting, I was like less keen on it. Whereas you were like, "Oh, this is pleasant. I like this is fine."
Yeah.
I was more like a bit off put, and I was like, "Can you not do your own thing instead of like trying to do this popular thing?" I'm not sure. I don't know if I'm just like this jaded person. It's like, do your own thing, but I think I would like them to. What would I like them to do? I would like them to go in a direction that isn't teens next time, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like I do, like I said before, like the adults in the family stood out to me as being like interesting, like weird characters. And they did have great performances as well, so that could like go into it. But I feel like I'd like that where they've done a few times like teens making bad decisions. I would like maybe something a little bit more adults making tough decisions, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's where they'll go or not, but that would be very cool. And just to kind of lean back on a point that I was saying earlier but I was kind of dancing around it. I just love that this was a werewolf story. It was just It's werewolves. Like, let's have an entire 10-hour game about werewolves. I was like, yeah, let's do it. Like, I can't think of any other kind of game that's done that. Like, where it's been just, can you survive a night with werewolves? Like, I don't feel like it's been done, and I loved it. And I liked the other mysteries too. They managed to carry the Hacketts were a mystery because we didn't know their motivations. The hag was a mystery because we were getting drip fed little bits of information that something happened with a dog boy years ago, and you could put together about Silas being the origin point of it, but there was always some whys in amongst it, which was good, but mainly it was werewolves deal with it, and I loved that. I think that's mainly it.
No, yeah. I think your 2 points there are really great too. With one, werewolf story, that's what it was. Like, I haven't encountered that anywhere either. So I guess if people have werewolf recommendations, we'd love to hear them. Because
hell yeah.
I would definitely want more of that. But then I agree. It would be nice to see the adults making tough decisions. That was something maybe that is why I liked House of Ashes the most recent Dark Pictures, because they were like military people, so it wasn't, kids in a bad situation, but it was, we're soldiers, and like, how do we navigate this stuff? Like, I don't know. I thought that was cool, for sure.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I'd like more of that for sure.
Yeah, so that would be interesting to see something like that, where you would have a game that would have something like this going on, but a new monster, vampires or zombies or whatever, but they're adults, and how do they deal with it? Like, that would be cool.
I want a supermassive zombie game. That would be, I like that.
Yeah, when Jacob mentioned that as one of the things he thought, I was like, I would be very into that.
Yeah.
That would be cool. For me, really, I think we have covered basically all the thoughts that I had on this game. They've already naturally come up. The only thing I had is, if you're listening to this and you want more of the Quarry, friends of the show, Do You Want to Continue? Did a podcast episode earlier this month on the Quarry. So go check theirs episode out if you want more of it. I'll retweet it. It'll be on Twitter and stuff if you want to check it out. But I haven't listened to it yet, but I'm looking forward to, now that this has been recorded, to go check their stuff out. So their episode on the Quarry. So check that out if you want more. Finally, to wrap up, we do have a little bit of listener feedback. So I'll just read through that for us, and we can engage on stuff if we have anything we want to say. So first up, we've got Eli on Twitter, who said, I really enjoyed it. I think the story was extremely well written, and all the lore and extra stuff you just stumble upon was a cool touch. Melissa says, it's so good. Definitely a favorite of mine from Supermassive now. Yeah, I think so too. This is definitely a favorite of the Supermassives for me, and I really enjoy what's happened here.
Yeah, I have so many thoughts about I want to compare it to Until Dawn, but like here isn't the place to do it because I'm obviously not going to spoil Until Dawn for people. But I like there's so many discussion points about where it's different and what it does and what Until Dawn does and where it's successful and where it fails between the two of them. So I still like Until Dawn better personally. That's my favorite, and I like the bite-sized stories of the Dark Pictures possibly more than you and Jacob do. Because I had like a outstanding experience with Man of Medan, which definitely feels a little different to how you guys had it.
Cool.
Yeah, so but it's definitely, I'm sorry that I've like maybe bashed the game a little bit to people who are listening who like really love it, but I should also reiterate that I also do really love it. I just, when something's really good and so that makes you see the problems and wish they were better. It's one of those for me where I'm just like, if these little things could be better, then I'd have nothing to complain about and it would be class. Do you know what I mean?
No, yeah, totally know what you mean. And I think for me too, at the end of the day, I think Until Dawn is still probably my favorite of any of these two. It's been a while since I've played Until Dawn, so part of me wonders if I'm like viewing it extra good because of like, I played it a long time ago, so I love it more. Like I'd like to replay it sometime because I feel like that would be good to do. But this at least I feel like got closest to it for sure. For me, and was like, this is pretty good. And I think for the Dark Pictures, it's like I really liked House of Ashes. That gave me a lot of faith. I think I liked Man of Medan decently, and then I liked Little Hope maybe a little bit less. And so House of Ashes has me excited for the next Dark Pictures, but none of them have reached the height of the Quarry for me.
Right, yeah.
But, yeah. Continuing, we've got Harry on Twitter who said, I completed it a few weeks ago. I liked it. Good story. To me, it was very challenging to keep the counselors alive. I ended up with 2 survivors. So, sounds like their playthrough might have went kind of how yours did. Where it got pretty messy. Josh on Twitter said, loved it. Played couch co-op with a friend. Trading off of characters and not letting the other person influence the decision made it a great experience. That sounds like that's probably what you had too.
That sounds amazing. Like, that's similar-ish to how we played the Dark Pictures games, except it wasn't couch, it was online. But, like, if you're not a streamer, I would say that couch co-op would probably be, like, my most recommended way to play it, because these games are so much fun with other people. Like, because they are the B-horror type thing, I also find those kind of movies are more fun with other people, because you're joking about the things that are happening and like the game's like allowing for that kind of experience together, and it's great.
Yeah, I do think that there is something with these kind of games that it makes them even better when you share them. When I played Detroit Become Human, my co-host Jordan and I just traded the controller back and forth as we played. And we were just together and just played that way. And it was so great to just, like these games are, I feel like, as fun to play as to just be in the discussion with about it, like with the person, just like for you streaming and having people watch it. Like it's fun to be a watching person for those two.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for sure.
Then we've got Chris on Twitter who said this was above average for the most part. Kit on Twitter said generally enjoyable, though it takes a long time for the story to get going.
Yeah.
Sass Queen says it was fun solo. And the Turtle says it's my personal game of the year so far. So
wow.
A lot of love there. So that's cool. Ryan on Twitter said, whenever I play games like this for the first time, I always kill everyone, unintentionally. This was the case this time as well. Maybe I'm just not a good friend, LOL.
Same.
Yeah, I thought that was funny. I never really thought about that of, like, when you play games like this, do you have characters that you're like, I'm going to get them killed because I don't like them? Or do you just kind of see what happens?
No, I try and save everyone.
Okay.
Like, I know some people when they play, they like either try and role play how they think that character would act, or some people will try and meta, like, puppet string the story or whatever. I just try and do my best. I'm gonna make the decisions that come naturally to me, and see if I can get everyone to survive while also just questioning the story and stuff. But I don't have intentions other than try and do okay. Usually people die as a result.
Yeah, no, that's good. I do the same thing. I try to make everyone survive. I have like characters I want to survive more, so like I guess if I had a choice, I would choose for the character I like more. But like, but otherwise, I try to make everyone survive. And this time, most of my people lived, which was cool. But when I've played other ones, everyone dies or most people die. So I think this one just went my way, where I didn't have that many deaths, which was nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Last comment we've got is from Mike on Twitter. He wrote a little bit longer of one, but he had some pretty good thoughts, so I wanted to include them all. Mike says, this one I had fun with, but there were some ups and downs. It's inevitable that comparisons to Until Dawn will be made. Same developer and all. Quarry had more characters I considered likable than Until Dawn, and it felt harder to keep people I liked alive. A few deaths towards the absolute end of the game felt cheap, but it is good for the tension when you realize that even a simple missed QTE can be fatal, not just the big flashing neon sign choices. Unlike Until Dawn, it's not hard to figure out what's really going on. Fairly early, players will be ahead of the characters for a good long while. But when the spoilers you think aren't the real threat do a solid about face later, though a few gifted actors are sorely wasted. The one thing I wish they tweaked was that some of the cast don't seem appropriately alarmed by the events they experience. Like, dude, I just chainsawed off your hand, and you're making jokes an hour later. But in total, very fun, interactive monster/slasher movie/game thing. Some graphical and writing acting issues don't detract from the properly over-the-top splatterfest. Great game to play with an audience, family, friends, or streaming. So, I think good like criticism along the way, but overall, like, seemed to really enjoy this game and had a lot of good things to say about it.
Yeah. It seems like everyone kind of agrees where it's like, it's fun, it's a fun time, it's like, but there may be problems, but generally, I guess by now, most people know what to expect, kind of, so, and when it doesn't suck, it's like, yes, they did it. This is so good. And I feel like this one was like a relief and also just like, yes, give me more of this, please. This is what we like.
Yep. I agree. I think at this point for me, and maybe people who like these games are like, they're Supermassive games. I probably like them a certain amount because I keep buying them. And, some I'll like more than others, but like, I don't know. I know I enjoy this and I have fun with them. And so... And it's not like it has to be, I don't know, what other games are. Other games I think try to be like, we're art, or there's a thing to say, or this. And instead, I think the Supermassive games are like, we're games. They're fun. They kind of are what they are. And I think if that's what you want, then you like them. And I guess if you don't, then I don't know that any of them would convince you that you like them.
Yeah, for sure. That is very true.
Yeah. Cool. That's really all I had. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about before we wrap up?
I think we've covered like basically everything. Yeah, it was good game. Good game.
Yeah. Great game. Thank you for coming on. I'm glad we got to talk about this. Before we wrap, I wanted to give you a spot again to tell people what you do online, where they can find you, all that stuff.
You can find me on the internet. Thanks again for having me, Dan. You can find me on the internet at Jacob McCourt, JACOBMCCOURT. I host two podcasts, one called the Left Behind Game Club. It is a video game book club podcast. We played some of the same games as Dan. Dan has been on the show before. Dan, what episode was it again that you came on?
Firewatch.
Yes. So if you want a good place to start, I think it's either episode 80. I think it's 89 that you came on. That's probably a good place to check out the show because Dan was on it. And then I host another show called Cutscenes. It's a video game book club. It's a video game, movie, and TV podcast. Noob has been on that one. We're watching all the Resident Evil games or Resident Evil movies. So if you like this, find a Resident Evil show. Noob's on it. The chemistry is just as good as it is here. And so that's what I do. So thanks again for having me, Dan.
So you can find me on Twitch at CtrlAltNoob 0. So I've never spelt this out loud. CtrlAltNoob 0. And where I stream a variety of games multiple times a week. Also YouTube, just CtrlAltNoob without the 0, and Twitter, CtrlAltNoob also. And www.controlaltnoob.com as well is where I do my writing. So basically, that's me. Do little reviews, like written reviews. I play indie games on YouTube and variety games on Twitch.
Awesome. No, that's great. Yeah, again, thanks for coming on. I'll get that all linked as well in the notes. So please go check out Noob and Jacob's things online. They're very much worth your time and super enjoyable. If you want to get in contact with us, our Twitter's @StoryEverPod. I'm pretty active on there, so if you want to talk games, you want to talk more Quarry, definitely on there. Our website's thegreateststoryeverplayed.com. That has a backlog of all of our episodes, including the Dark Pictures. I did one on Until Dawn at the beginning of the podcast. So if you want more of that stuff, it is there. You can find us on Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you get podcast. We're all in those places, so you can check there as well. If you'd like to support the podcast financially, you can do that at patreon.com/thegreateststoryeverplayed. There, for as little as $1 per month, that will get you monthly access to a bonus episode that comes out each month that are more topical in nature. So instead of the like one game, one episode like this is, instead it's a variety of things. So like I ranked the Star Wars movies a while ago, or talked about my favorite characters from Life is Strange, things like that. So if that sounds like something you want, go check that out. If you'd like to support the podcast but can't financially, that's totally great. One good way to do that is just to rate and review us on Apple Podcast or wherever you get podcasts. That can really bring visibility to the show so that we can share the games we enjoy with more people. I think that's one of my favorite parts about this show is getting to share games with other folks. So if you'd like to do that, it would mean a lot and be much appreciated. And that is all we got. So we will see you next time.